Okay. Okay. So this interview is for an oral history report, and I'm choosing to use you because of your cultural difference and because you also have done some pretty incredible things, in my opinion. And I kind of feel like I want to recognize those. So the first thing I want to start with is the process of immigrating to a new country and how that experience was for you. So my first question is, when did you first decide that you wanted to immigrate, and why?
Well, we were in graduate school, your grandfather and me, and he always had dream of coming to United States. I started thinking about it, of course, because I was dating him. So we finished our PhDs and we were deciding maybe we could stay here. We were looking for apartments. We didn't find anything very special. And also jobs. And the opportunities were not as good as we would like to. And especially for me. I don't know how he felt, but for me, I thought that there were not great opportunities. Being a woman, it was difficult. So that's when we decided to get married and come. So a month before we got married, your grandfather says, let's get married. We didn't ask permission to anyone. But anyway, we got married. We had to get married to get all the documentation to come here. And that was very hard to do because the FBI gave us, I don't know how many pages of questions we had to ask and all that. And also we need some kind of security that when we came to this country, we will not be a burden to the country.
Mm-hmm.
But your uncle Sam, was living in Queens, New York. And he was our, I don't know how to, not a sponsor really, because your grandfather got a petroleum fellowship to bring him to United States, to go to Brown University as a postdoc with $5,000 a year.
Wow.
And that was a big money for us.
Mm-hmm.
So that really was what it made it easier to come. Now, it was very hard to come because we married October 5th and we went on a honeymoon, and when we came back, my mother had been diagnosed with breast cancer. So although we had everything to come right away in November, I was torn about leaving her or leaving my husband. So we postponed the trip to February, and my mother had the mastectomy, and when we left her, she was recuperating from surgery. So, once you get married, you have to follow your husband. Now, the principal idea of coming to this country not only was to give us a better opportunity, but to make a better future for our children,
Mm-hmm.
to give them all the things that we could not get. And I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional.
No, it's fine. It's okay.
So, your grandfather spoke English because he went to all his elementary school. He went to a school that half a day was English, half a day was Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And he had to give all the tests as if he was in Cambridge, England.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't have any trouble with the language. I didn't speak English at all. And I felt so bad. All these little kids on the streets could speak English, and I couldn't. That was silly, but that's the way I felt.
Mm-hmm.
So it was hard to understand what people telling me, and also leaving the family behind. I was very close to my family. I was the eldest daughter that always took care of the family. And, well, that's it.
Was it scary transitioning from a whole different culture? Like,
Oh, yes. You know, I'll give you an example of the little difference in culture.
mm-hmm.
We went for breakfast, and so in Argentina, when you ask for coffee, you ask café con leche,
Mm-hmm.
coffee with milk.
Right.
So we went to this place, we asked for coffee with milk.
Mm-hmm.
So what did they do? They gave us a cup of coffee and a glass of milk. That's one example. The other one, we went to the market to become familiar with the things, and I see this jar that look, oh, delicious. It looked like dulce de leche.
Mm-hmm.
Remember dulce de leche?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, let's get it. I didn't understand what the label said. So we got it. We got home, I went with a spoon. It was peanut butter. So it took some time for me to get used to peanut butter after that.
Was that your first peanut butter experience?
Yes. So this is a very little example, but it
Mm-hmm.
tells you little things that make a big difference from country to country.
So how long did it take for you to start speaking English yourself?
Well, the first thing I did was to watch Romper Room.
Mm-hmm.
I can do the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag like if, you know, it's part of me.
Uh-huh.
And Captain Kangaroo. You don't know probably those programs.
No.
Well, it was before Sesame Street.
Uh-huh.
So those were things that I listen and pay attention, and that's how I learned. But it took a long time to really understand what people were talking about.
I mean, one of the questions I was going to ask was there's like any complications with your move, but I mean, you kind of answered that already. So then once you like got settled down and you started like getting your roots in, did you know that where you like wanted to end up in your career, or were you just kind of playing around with jobs?
See, your grandfather had the postdoc, so we tried to get something for me. And I got something where I volunteer
Mm-hmm.
to do some work. But at that time, we came in February 1961. And that year was the big Berlin crisis, where problems with Russia and United States. Also, your grandfather was 25 when we arrived, so he had to he went and registered right away for the draft. At that time, there was draft,
Mm-hmm.
and they could draft you until you were 26. So they hurry up and called him, and he went through all the physicals and everything. And then they classify him 1A. That means they could call him to service right away.
Mm-hmm.
His advisor was in Germany, and at that time it came the Berlin crisis. So really was very scared because I was seeing him going to service and me staying, not speaking English, and didn't know what to do. But luckily, I got pregnant with your mother. Not only that, but his advisor wrote a letter and they changed him from 1A to 1F, defer. So in that sense, we were feeling okay, he will not be drafted. And I had the dream of having my baby, and I didn't know it was going to be a girl.
Mm-hmm.
So those were very hard times. And on top of that, my mother sick in Argentina. It was tough. I don't know if I answered your question. Did I answer your question?
A little bit. I was just wondering. I think think you answered it. Yeah. So then, where did you finally find a job to like settle down that led you to your decision to start your own company?
Well, that took a long time. I didn't go back to work until 69. Remember, we came in 61.
Mm-hmm.
Up to then, all I was doing my chemical abstracts, doing abstracts for a chemical publication of all, doing reviews and abstracts of, articles in chemical, in English, no, I'm sorry, in Italian, Portuguese, and Spanish. Then, in 69, I was hired as a postdoc in a pharmacology department. I never thought I would be working in pharmacology. I'm organic chemist. And I worked there. Then I went to the Research Institute on Alcoholism. And then in 80, your mother was going to Cornell. In 81, I think it was, I was laid off because they had to save money, so they closed my department. So I was without a job for a few months, and then I started in the business, and that was in 1983. We got big loans from the bank, from the city, from the county, and bought a special equipment, state-of-art equipment, and that's how we launched the business, because I needed to do something and we could not move out of Buffalo, so I had to find a way to stay there and do something on my career.
So that was just pretty much because of you getting laid off? It was never been like you had this dream of starting your own business?
Oh, I always loved to have my own business.
Mm-hmm.
See, my mother had her own business. My mother started a little produce, like a market in her garage, because we didn't have a car, so the garage was empty. So she started selling, vegetables, fruits, and then she built it to make a big grocery store. And she went only to 3rd grade. So I always thought that my mother was fantastic. She was an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. She didn't know, she couldn't write much. When she was in 3rd grade, she was taken away from school to help the family business. So I had to help her carrying the books. I was 8 years old and doing all that. So yeah, I love my mother and I knew what she could do, so I wanted to do something similar, my own business. So that was part of it too. It was not just the need, but the independence of being able to create something on your own.
So what was your company and your business for? Like, what did it do?
Okay. We started with state-of-the-art instrumentation. We bought an instrument that was the latest thing. Mm-hmm. And that was, first I'll tell you, the business was oriented to help small companies that could not afford to have a research component because they were small. And research is very expensive.
Right.
So we were gearing to do their research. Now, the techniques we use, Fourier transfer infrared, was something very new. Mm-hmm. Infrared existed when I went to graduate school. And infrared is a way to look at a molecule and determine their chemical structure. It's like a fingerprint. Polymers have like a fingerprint, and this technique gives you that fingerprint so you can distinguish them. Mm-hmm. When I went to graduate school, to do just one spectra took a whole day, and a whole day to interpret the data.
Wow.
When we started the business in by then was 1984, this instrument was capable of getting 100 spectra in 1 minute. And the computer analyzed the spectra and gave you the spectra in about another 2 minutes.
Wow.
Go to the library and find out what that was. So you can see the difference from the time I went to school in 1960 to 1984.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we started. And then we built our own library. Our business was called EB Associates Laboratories. Associates because we were using some people when we needed help.
Mm-hmm.
Like I use your grandfather
Right.
if I needed raw material samples. I needed your Aunt Moo. She came during the summers and wrote all the letters to send to industry offering our services. And then she established our accounting system.
Mm-hmm.
We needed people in university where we could use other techniques to complement ours and to be able to help people with their problems. And their problems were maybe there was a product that didn't work. Why it didn't work?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll analyze it and we'll tell them if the formulation was correct and if there was a problem with it. They forgot to add something or added something wrong. So that's the kind of research we did.
So it was a broad research availability, or was it just strictly chemistry?
Chemistry.
Okay.
And it was adhesives, paints, dyes, inks. We had a big client from Canandaigua, New York, that made all kind of labels. So they will have problem with the label no sticking, or with the printing on their printers at that time used an ink system. What was the problem with the surface of the paper? That kind of things we were doing for them.
Mm-hmm. So was your clientele based just in the United States or overseas?
No, all over United States.
Mm-hmm.
We have more clients outside by Buffalo. Remember we were living in Buffalo, New York?
Right.
We had more clients outside the state than in the state.
Wow.
And they were from Massachusetts to Texas. And I don't remember the West Coast. I think California was the one that I remember clients from there.
Wow. How big did your company get?
Well, we had a technician, and then we had students from a community school based in Niagara Falls. And we had 2 students usually coming and working 20 hours a week. And at that time, we had to decide if we wanted to keep growing or stay in the same area. I had trouble with having employees and having to do all the accounting that you needed, this, the taxes and I forgot now the name, disability insurance. I had someone that had been give them the time, so it cost that. So at that time we had to decide what would you do? Do we grow bigger or do we stay small?
Mm-hmm.
The option was to go for environmental analysis. At that time it was a big urge to do more environmental testing. But all that required to be to go for proficiency tests, and those proficiency tests were very expensive. So that, coupled with a bad experience with the employees, made us think, no, we'll stay where we are. We'll just keep going this way. So we didn't grow too much, but it was our own choice.
Okay. And then what happened to the company now?
The company is still in the books because we built a library of spectra.
Mm-hmm.
And so every spectra library they sell, that the company that made the machinery sells, we get a royalty.
Oh, okay.
And we are still getting royalty. Not much, but they are selling a lot of this to China. So we are getting every 3 months a little check. So the company is still in the books and getting money.
Okay. So then we're going to segue into the last part, which is the creative side. So when did you first start painting and realizing you liked it?
Well, I started painting from the time we came to this country. But when I was working, I had 3 children. I have a full-time job, so I couldn't do much.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to paint at night as a type of, the kids robbed me nuts today, so I have to paint to rest.
Right.
And I painted acrylics because oils were toxic and didn't dry soon enough. So I promised myself that when I retire, I wanted to do watercolors because I love watercolors the most.
Yeah.
So in 2001, when I retired, I started learning more about watercolors, and that's when I started painting seriously. So I say now is my second career.
Okay. Can we just pause for a sec? Is there any way you can tilt your screen down a little bit? I think it's creeping up. There you go. That's a little better. It started to creep up on your face.
Oh. Okay.
Okay. So, do you find like it's a form of like relaxation for painting?
It's more than relaxation. It's a need.
Mm-hmm.
And first was a need to feel that I'm still useful. It's very hard when you retire because you are used to always be doing something. So this was that. And then after a while, it became therapy. So today is more than that. It's therapy. Is where I can let myself go and forget about the rest of the world. Now, I have to tell you, I started a new way of painting.
Mm-hmm.
Then 2 months ago, I started drawing classes because being a scientist, all my paintings are very controlled, very precise, very realistic.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel that I have to become more free in my painting. So I started going to this guy that is a little bit crazy the way he makes you do things.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him that I wanted to become looser with my paint.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to be a loose woman. He laughs. Especially being 81 years old, I want to be a loose woman. I'm doing that, and it's crazy. I have to send you some other pictures of what I'm doing. It's really crazy. But I'm enjoying it.
Good.
I just did a funny collage.
Mm-hmm.
I put, to me it's garbage. But that, is what I'm supposed to do for the new course.
Mm-hmm.
I'll send you pictures of that.
Okay, yeah. So what's your favorite thing to paint?
My family.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how many paintings of you I have.
Yep, a lot.
I have more here than what you have. Yes.
Okay, so what's the easiest thing to paint?
I don't know. If you want to be good, nothing is easy. And maybe you make 10 paintings, and maybe one you are happy with it. But it's difficult. I don't know what is easier. I tell you what I like. I like old buildings because I like the craftsmanship of old buildings. I like cityscapes. I do not like flowers. I like landscape. And the best really is the human body. I think figures are the most beautiful things to do. Not just the family, but the human body.
Well, that's fascinating. That's definitely an interesting new take on it. I didn't know that was how you felt.
Yeah, well,
about painting.
In June, for the third time, I'm going to be the artist of the month here in Mirabella.
Wow.
And I show them what I'm doing, the nude people that I'm drawing and painting. So I said, do you think people will have problems? Because, the oldies maybe don't like to see naked men and naked women with big boobs. And they said, go ahead. In June, I'm going to put all these nudes up on the lobby downstairs.
Well, that'll definitely be interesting.
Yes. So I'm going to feel very bad about looking at these naked people.
Well, it's art. It's a little different with art, I feel.
No, these are old fogies. Remember, we had a lot of 90s and 80-year-old people here.
Okay, well, thank you very much for taking the time to answer my questions. I think I actually learned some new things about you that I hadn't actually known before. So it was very interesting to learn some of that stuff.
I'm glad you like it. I have to tell you that I've been writing about the family, not just us now, but about my grandparents, my parents, and my life before growing up. And I have all that, and I hope someday you'll be able to read it and see where I come from.
Oh, I would definitely love that. That'd be great.
I've seen in 80 years big changes, not only in technology, but in values. It's amazing to be part of this on these times, especially the advances that occur in all areas. So I hope someday you'll read what I wrote and understand where I come from.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
All right, and that will conclude it.
And you are still my pegote.
Thank you.
Not here. That's my nickname for you.
Yep.
And I can see your mother in behind there.
Yeah.